Okay, so that actually concludes our tutorial today. So thank you so much for following along, and we hope that you have learned quite a bit during this tutorial for compositing subject into our backdrops. So just to quickly recap the things we talked about. So we covered importing the backdrop into Photoshop and saving the document. We then talked about how to adjust the backdrop on the initial at the beginning, so position the backdrop in a way that was preparing us to put our subject in the image. And then we added in the subject and masked out the subject and masked around the hair. We refined the edge of the subject, and then we did some more adjusting of the subject into position. So once we did that cutting out, which can be quick or slow depending on what effect you're looking for or what the quality of your original image is with your subject, we then moved into the compositing or enhancement of the image. So we looked at the base color and lighting adjustments on the image, which included things like curves and hue saturation and color balance. We then moved into the second part of compositing, which was adding additional lighting and shadows to the image. So we put some shadows underneath the subject and then used more adjustment layers like curves to add some additional light to the subject. We then did some further refinements on the edge of the subject once we had done our initial composite. I then talked about using our overlays to add some effects into your artwork and different techniques and ideas around using them. So there's a lot of flexibility when using overlays in your image. So things like masking, the variation in overlays, adding effects like hue saturation adjustments, changing the color of them, position, blur. There's lots of different ideas that you can use in your images. Then we moved on to looking at different backdrops and ideas around if you would like to put your subject into different backdrops and different techniques. And then I talked about the final touches on your artwork. So that was using thinking about your subject and the backdrop, and I showed you how to add a camera type blur to your backdrop while maintaining some clarity and sharpness of foreground elements. So we did that just before we moved into the final touches using Camera Raw. And then I showed you just some final adjustments of the backdrop if you wanted to change the crop and orientation before you moved on to the final export. And then I showed you how to the best way to export your artwork just using Photoshop's built-in export. And so yeah, that pretty much concludes everything. So thank you so much for following along, and we hope that it's helped you out with compositing and using our backdrops. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.